Disclosure. All information we have on these cases are public record. We are not making fun of anyone or anything. This channel is for awareness of cases and entertainment purposes only.
Welcome back to our channel. We're going to be listening to Kaylor today tell us a story about something I have no idea.
Yeah, this one's I don't even know. It's bad.
We say bad like every single time. We're like bad, horrible, bad.
Well, I don't think any of them's like, hey guys, today's case it's actually something really good.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you don't get really good on true crime.
No. So before we start this video, there's just a warning in this video that we're going to be talking about the murder of children and medical cruelty. So, yeah. This one has to do with nurses, not nurses, a nurse. So do you know what the angel of death is? Like what an angel of death is?
Mm-mm.
So an angel of death claims to believe they are putting their victims out of misery. So
okay.
It could be a nurse, a doctor, anybody in the medical field who see their people as like they're doing them a favor by putting them out of a misery. So the person we're going to talk about is Genene Jones, aka the PICU killer. PICU, that's horrible.
What does that mean?
PICU, it's pediatric ICU, intensive care unit. Yeah. Okay. So this is for any of like children, small children from newborns to, I don't even know, what would you consider the age that they don't need to be in the pediatric ward anymore. But
I mean, you can go to the pediatric dentist till you're 18 years old. So I mean,
can you?
Yeah.
No, I never went to the pediatric dentist. I just went to the normal one. So Genene was born in the summer of 1950 in San Antonio, Texas. You've been there.
Yeah, we have.
Mm-hmm. Within days of her parents giving birth to her, they actually put her up for adoption. So that kind of sucks. But most people, you think they'd be stuck in adoption or like in the care for a while, but not for her. She wasn't even up for adoption for long. Soon she was taken in by Richard and Gladys Jones, a well-known local couple who already had 2 adopted children themselves. So I don't know if they just couldn't have kids or they just decided, that they'd rather bring in children than have their own.
There I go again. I'm not even talking and I'm clearing my throat. What?
Oh, yeah. But same thing with that, too. I have a sinus infection, so if I sound nasally, that's what the problem is. Because I can hear myself because my ears are clogged, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I sound like Fran from The Nanny.
Oh, yeah.
And myself. So after they adopted Genene, they adopted their 4th and final child, a boy named Travis. So they had 2 boys and now 2 girls. Or 2 boys, 2 girls. They lived, actually, let me tell you something. This right here, I wish this was me. They lived on 8-acre property with a tennis court and guest cottages and just luxury. So they had all
doing rich people shit.
Yeah. They had some money.
That's what we call it when people
rich people
do
shit.
Stuff like that. It's like, oh yeah, that's rich people shit. No, we can't do that.
No. I didn't think our house is not even an acre.
No.
She was a gifted child and she loved baking, sewing. She played the piano. So I mean, she was like a good kid. I take it. Now kid as time goes on. As she grew older, she became more moody and like intense. Well, of course, that happens with females. When you get older,
the teenage years,
yeah,
you know, that
smack them.
I know my mom wanted to smack me.
Did you hear that? I breathed in. It was like, but she was somewhat of an outsider. She was teased and bullied in school for being overweight and just being like bossy. I mean, that's some girls. There's always that one girl in your class that's gonna be like Miss Bossy. My sister. But she was also the oldest. I don't know if Genene was the oldest of all the kids, but most of the time the oldest become bossy.
Oh, I'm bossy? Yeah, I'm really bossy.
Her teacher saw her mostly as a troublemaker, which that's horrible. Because I've had bad teachers who always were just so mean to me and everything. And like, that's just horrible for like a teacher to do. Just think like, it's just like troublemaker. Like whatever. But she loved her family. She loved spending time with her family. Her father was he was a business maker. He would have his own business, and he painted billboards for the local businesses around. And she always spent time in there. She went and helped her dad with all that stuff. The boy that they adopted, Travis, her and Travis had a very connecting bond. Like, they were really close with each other and everything. And everybody always has that one sibling they're really close with. Like, I'm more close with my brother than I am my sister. But as time went on, I mean, like, I guess me and Ray were kind of close, whatever. But tragedy struck. November 1966, when she was 16, Travis was tinkering in the workshop at their house. He was actually building a pipe bomb.
Oh.
Nobody knows why.
Yeah, I was going to say why.
I know. Nobody knows why he was doing that. I mean, okay, so the pipe bomb exploded and killed him. He was 14.
Oh.
Like, from what I read, people are like, oh, he's probably just interested in, like explosives and all that stuff. I don't think my brother was, like, interested in all that explosive and everything. Like, who wants to be, I don't understand that. But yeah, the pipe bomb killed him and killed 14-year-old Travis. The audacity.
You can get that out.
I don't know. I might get that in. It's kind of funny. But Genene took the death the hardest because they were so close to each other that, like, out of the whole family, like, she was just devastated. And, like, at the funeral, like, she threw herself on his casket and was just wailing, like, as the casket was, like, lowering. She was just, like, destroyed with it. And, like, she was so torn up and everything, you would think, okay, she needs some time away or whatever. No. Like, she returned back to school just a few hours after the funeral.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like, oh my gosh, if any of my siblings died or anybody that, like when my grandparents passed away, I didn't go to work. Like, that's the last thing on my mind is my dad, on the other hand, he was, but it's like, I want to have time to grieve and everything.
Yeah.
But her classmates saw it.
I mean, a few hours, that's, I can, that's very soon.
First, for how you're acting at the funeral and just be like, okay, I'm going to go back to school. Mm-hmm. But people saw it as, she was trying to get sympathy and, like, attention for it.
Yeah.
Because later on, like, that's what she was wanted. She wanted attention. She wanted all that. She was actually well known for lying too, which we'll talk about. And, well, here it is, actually. Throughout high school, she developed a reputation as a compulsive liar. So she would make up stories. She told some of her classmates, that she was related to a popular pop star. But, like, she would always say that her parents never loved her and never really adopted her legally. Like, she's not legally theirs and adopted. Like, she made up all these lies and everything. But when she was 17, she met Jimmy. Oh, goodness. After listening to the last names and stuff, you would think I remember. Delani. Yeah, Delani. He was a rebellious dropout and convinced her that school didn't matter. Everybody goes through that bad boy phase. Like, you always find that one. It's like all rebellious and all that stuff because they're young, they're 17, they're supposedly not to give a shit and all that. Mm-hmm. But then again, tragedy hit again. October of 1967, Genene's father was actually diagnosed with terminal cancer, and 3 months later, he died.
That's fast.
Yeah. So in a span of a year, she lost 2 close family members to herself. So you would think, okay, now that she's done that, she's just about to go off the rails. She, after her father's death, like, people think as a spite or like a way of healing and all that stuff, she got engaged to Jimmy. So 17 years old getting engaged, but her mom was like, no, like, you need to finish school, you need to do that, because she couldn't without her mom's permission to sign off on it, the wedding and all that stuff. So she's like, you need to finish school and all that stuff, because they were like, they got engaged and they're like, oh, hey, yeah, we're going to get married on Valentine's Day. That was like in 2 months. Like, no, you need to do all that stuff. So her mom was like, you need to finish school and everything. So she was like, okay. So she graduated, and then her and Jimmy got married. But they had financial problems, so they moved back in to live on the land in the cottage, the family cottage. They were living rent-free. Rent-free is the fun part. 7 months into their marriage, Jimmy joined the Navy. And during that time, Genene saw opportunity and she had multiple affairs.
Oh, yeah. She needs attention.
Yeah.
This whole time she's been, it's like no matter what she does, she creates situations where she gets all the attention.
Mm-hmm. It's just she's feeling like she doesn't, because he's away at training, and then, Navy, most of the Navy, you have to move near water. I mean, Texas is near like oceans and stuff. Galveston.
Disappointing on us. Where they going, Chuck? Galveston? That dirty ass water.
And all that. But they have to be near water and everything, so I mean, she's alone and all that. So actually, word got back to Jimmy of the affairs. And he just was like,
one of the other military wives is telling one of the other guys that I bet found out.
Yeah, there was just, I mean, she was telling everybody about it too.
Oh,
so word got back to Jimmy, and he just looked the other way. He was like, whatever. He just looked the other way. So he honestly didn't get two shits. They actually had to end up moving to Alabama, Georgia. They had to move to Georgia because of his job. Albany, Georgia, and because of he got moved there. What is that called?
Transferred.
Yes,
or whatever.
Yeah, I was going to say recruited, and that's not the word. And in 1971, Genene became pregnant. And about that time, too, Jimmy was discharged from the Navy in September of 1971 because of his work ethic and repeated discipline. So they were just like, okay, well, all this stuff's adding up. You're out. They kicked him out. He found a job as a mechanic, and Genene found a job as a beautician. After a few months,
standing on your feet all day.
Yeah. Oh, golly. After a few months of Edward's, she gave birth and whatever, and they gave birth to a little boy named Edward. After giving birth,
does he sparkle in the sun? Okay, keep going.
That was really, honestly, it took me a second to figure out what you were talking about, but then it clicked. Yeah, and he's got a best friend that's a werewolf.
Yeah,
or not.
Well, they weren't best friends. They hated each other.
Anyway, they were best friends.
They were in the end.
They were lovers.
Anyways, bad joke.
They, with the whole financial and everything, like Genene was just kind of like, she was done. She found out maybe she married the wrong guy. She's over it. So,
that's real cool. I married the wrong guy, but I'm the one that cheated on him for how long? Yeah, okay.
It was just because of like financial issues and stuff. They were just not making enough money and everything. So a few months after Edward's birth, she left Jimmy and flew back to San Antonio. And he was 4 months old, Edward was. So she left him, and she pretty much filed for divorce. So the divorce was finalized in June of 1974. After the divorce, and she lived in San Antonio and landed a job as a beautician at Methodist Hospital. And this is kind of where everything started with the whole medical thing. But tragedy struck yet again. Her older brother, okay, so yeah, she wasn't the oldest. Her older brother, Wiley, every time I say that, it sounds like I'm saying Riley with like a little whininess. Wiley was diagnosed with cancer, and things just spiraled really quickly, and he ended up dying at the age of 28.
Oh,
I know, I'm 29, and like that's just thinking like right now, if I had cancer and I died, like I don't feel like I did enough in my life.
No, well, you don't at 28. Like that's
and that's this is where she kind of was starting the fear of things, because her dad died. Well, here's the thing, is that none of these people are blood related to her because she's adopted. Yeah. So none of this, like, she can't get, like, with my grandmother's, breast cancer and all that.
Right, you can't get your life history.
Yeah.
Like your, like what happens with your mom, your dad, your real grandparents, your genetic, that's it, your genetic history. So. I was having a brain fart.
Like always. So, like, she was terrified because she was thinking, oh my gosh, I can get cancer and all that stuff. But it's like, you think that you're not blood related. So she became, like, obsessed with it. and terrified of the disease because she's afraid, like I said, of developing and all that stuff. With her working at the hospital and becoming fascinated with all things medical, she took up reading textbooks and all that stuff. So, yeah, she just threw herself in there. She became like just so about
She's like
it.
Totally obsessed with it.
Yeah. Listen, I work in the medical field, and I'm not going into nursing and all that stuff. Like, I'm not a nurse or anything. I just don't want any more of all that. I've got enough knowledge in this head for what my job is.
Yeah.
She would diagnose herself with various medical conditions. So she was a hypochondriac. So she would here's the thing right here. She developed a skin rash on her arm, and she automatically thought it was cancer. So she went to see a doctor, and the doctor just looked at her arm, and he was like, it's just like allergic reaction to the chemicals that you're using in the beauty shop. You'll be fine, just everything. But she was like, nope. She just thought it was cancer and everything. So she quit her job at the beauty shop, and she told friends that a dermatologist said that she needed to quit her job at the beauty shop because of all the chemicals and everything, that she can lose her hands. So there she goes, dramatic sizing everything, lying and all that stuff.
How many people are hairstylists? You don't lose your hands from.
I know. I've had it with a chemical burn.
You might get some arthritis, but
yeah,
other than that,
sciatica nerves. Yeah, but you're not gonna lose your hand because of the chemical. If you're gonna pin on your head, it's not gonna. It's so stupid. And you would think if I was if you said that to me or whatever, I'd been like, bitch, you crazy. What are you talking about? You find a new
by this time I'd have nubs. I'd be like,
oh my gosh. That's so stupid. She would also start diagnosing her friends. If somebody had a dry cough or whatever, she'd be like, lung cancer. And then somebody would cut their arm or whatever, and they'd be like, you're going to have sepsis. She would always just jump to the highest, the freak out conclusion, everything of everything. It's whoa, it's allergies. It's nope, you got lung cancer. A friend named Keith Martin quoted in an interview, quoting, she always wanted to make you feel as if you were physically ill. She wanted you to think yourself too that you're sick, everything was the worst. She wanted to inflict what she thought on other people too.
Yeah.
But
misery loves company. Yeah.
In 1976, Genene decided to channel her obsession into something productive and enrolled in a 1-year nursing program. But early on into her course and everything, she fell pregnant. It's not really clear who the father of this child was because she was a hoe. So, I mean, boo-boo. But that didn't delay any of her studies. She just kept working through and all that stuff. Most of the time.
Does she still have her first child?
Yes, she still has Edward. And then she ends up having a second child, which is a girl that she names Crystal. With all the textbooks and everything she read before she went into nursing. I mean, she was so already well advanced and everything. So she was just doing so good in nursing school. She actually graduated with honors, and that's when she had her daughter named Crystal. At the age of 26, she started job hunting, and she wanted to become an RN, but it was just a lot more schooling and everything. And I think at the time she really couldn't afford to do all that because she had her son and now her daughter, and it was just all too much. Plus, most of the time, if you want to continue on, at least work in the field for a little bit and see if you want to continue the education. But she was an LVN. I think it's what I should have wrote it down in here in my notes. A licensed vocational nurse. That's what I'm just going to start calling it an LVN. The LVNs actually had less responsibility and less pay. So she really wanted to become an RN and all that. So she got to work and everything. With her connection that she worked at the beautician in Methodist Hospital, she knew that they were hiring and all that time. During this time, there was a nurse shortage. So she got hired in at Methodist Hospital in September of 1977. She was hired in at the cardiac ICU. A few months after, her supervisors did a performance review and noted that she was tends to make judgments that neither has she has experience with or authorities to make. So she would always just make up.
So she's doing the same thing to these people in the hospital that she's doing to her friends.
Yeah. She would just she wanted to be just, making all the judgments and all that stuff. In April of 1978, a patient actually made a complaint against Genene's, against her behavior. She stated that Genene ordered her to elevate her legs, and when the patient didn't react quickly enough, Genene grabbed her legs and yanked it upwards, causing intense pain. And apparently, it was just so much and everything. And then, when the complaint came out, she really wanted to go talk to the patient about it, but her supervisor was like, no, you don't need to go talk to her about it and all that stuff. And she ended up doing it anyways. And went in there and confronted the patient and caused the patient to freak out and just have this big huge thing that they actually had to sedate the patient.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Following these incidents, management actually fired her. They're like, out of here. After 2.5 months after being dismissed from Methodist Hospital, she got a job at San Antonio Hospital where she worked in the OB ward. 5 months working at the hospital, she elected to have her tubes tied. Goodness gracious. Just because of all the working and her long hours and all that stuff, she couldn't really afford.
Yeah, she didn't want to have
another baby because her mother was the one, Gladys, was the one that's washing after the kids. And she's pushing 60 years old and she couldn't really take care of the kid anymore. I mean, 2 young kids running around. At that age, most of these people, they're retired. They don't want to be doing all this stuff. They don't want to raise any more kids. They've already done all that.
Yeah.
So she did not have enough sick time or, PTO. So she actually just quit her job. And she knows she could find another nursing job because of the nursing shortage. So in October of 1978, a few months after the surgery, she actually got a job at Berks County Hospital. And this is where everything starts. This hospital and another one are the top 2 main ones that are just kind of where everything starts with her. When she actually started working in the pediatric ICU or PICU, I'm going to be calling it the PICU for the rest of this because it's just too much. She was actually a perfect fit. The patients were not critically ill or anything like that. And they were they couldn't really take care of themselves because they are children. So she was like, I could do this. And her supervisors were really impressed with her because she had really mad skills. She was really good at inserting into IVs into babies because they have tiny veins, which they do. I know. Because I said I work in the medical field. I'm actually a phlebotomist, so I work with veins all the time. And I've actually had to stick children before. I stuck a 9-month-old and oh my gosh, how old was that one? 2-3-month-old, whatever. And they are teeny tiny, and it is very hard to stick a child in the veins. But apparently she can do it, so more power to her. That's cool if you have the mad skill, because most of the time they have to do via ultrasounds and stuff to get the veins in, but she could do it without any of that. And
I think though that she ended up with kids, because if we're talking about this, it's gonna end up not great.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, I don't know. Not that it's good for anybody, but I hate that she ended up with all the kids.
Yeah. But she was, she loved working with the kids. She was so just engrossed with her patients and everything. And what's really weird too is that she was just really obsessed with the families too, the parents. So and also she was she was welcoming to all the parents, even ones that they suspected that were abusing their own children, even with evidence that they show hey, yeah, they abused their own kids. She was just I don't care. And she was nice to them. Whatever, do your thing. But I'm not going to go out of my way to make you feel okay and all that stuff if you're abusing your own child.
For real.
I'm going to come in and do my job and get out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to sit there and make sure that you're okay. You need a cup of water.
I might slip a few dirty looks on my way.
Yeah. Like that. So it might look a little different because after we shot the rest of the video, apparently our microphone died. Something happened.
We had no audio.
Yeah, no audio. So we're shooting this about a couple hours later. So that's why it might look a little darker, as in this clip cuts to this area. So sorry.
Yay for us. You know, amateurs. Here we are.
Stupid.
I'm sure it's happened to other people.
Okay, so do this again, and I'm gonna make sure that microphone's light stays on.
Can you see it from where you're sitting?
Yeah, I can see it. All right, so she made 8 mistakes during her first year there, serious enough to have been formally recorded, but it never was. She failed to notice equipment failure, malfunction. If anybody's ever been in a hospital, they would know that any of the equipment, like IVs, like if you bend your arm with the IV in, you know, the IV pole, the channel, compartment things will go off. Even like people on ventilators, like if they choke on it or whatever, it always makes some noise. So I don't understand how she
it always beeps.
Like notice equipment malfunction or whatever, like makes some noise. She misunderstood doctor's orders once accidentally gotten gave an infant 10 times the appropriate dose of medication. Like I don't know how, like
because she did it on purpose.
Oh, most definitely. I can't. She always escaped any serious my brain is like fried at this point. Oh my gosh.
Repercussions?
Yes. I am so fried right now. Her boss, the nurse, Belko, saw her as it, like, she's just, you know, she was just so, it's like one of her favorites. It was her favorite. And, like, she never really gave her any, whatever that word.
Repercussions.
Yeah. And then all the other nurses actually resented it because of that. They figured it was favoritism.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be mad at that too. I've had some couple bosses. They say, "Oh, I'm not favoritism." Whenever everybody has their favorite, and they're going to treat them a little bit different than anybody else. So the other nurses were really mad about it. They also found Genene kind of hard to deal with. She was loud and obnoxious and like just absurd, and she was just ugh. And some of the nurses even changed shifts just to get away from her. I don't blame them. I would do the same thing too if like I had to deal with somebody like that.
Yeah.
Genene's old habits about bending the truth from like when she was a kid, talking about all that stuff being related to a pop star and everything. She actually told one of the coworkers that she spent a week in a coma because of a car accident. Like, no. Why? Like, why would you even want to lie about that? That's ridiculous.
I mean, when people are compulsive liars, I mean, why do they? Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They just do. You just don't get it.
Her lies weren't always just about herself. She would make lies about everything else. She would also make lies about her children, too. And, like, she also said that she would spot stuff that the other nurses or other...
What do you mean she lied about her kids?
Like, she herself was a hypochondriac, but she also was not a hypochondriac. She had, what's the word? I just lost it.
Munchausen?
Yes, Munchausen, and she had Munchausen by proxy because she would always try to... I think it's lying, okay? That's what it is. You're lying about having some type of medical issue wrong with yourself and or wrong with somebody else, your child, or whatever. Yeah, just like Gypsy Rose and all of them. But she would do that to her kids. She would always take her kids to the doctor and just, you know, oh, he's got a rash on his arm. It's stage 4 cancer, whatever. They've got sinus problem. It's sinus cancer. Like, she always did that. But she also did that with, I guess this is kind of, it's lying. She would go to say that she spots stuff that other nurses or doctors have missed, and when doctors would come in and check the stuff and there was nothing wrong with it or anything like that, she would then call another doctor to come check again, and they would refer to her as the nurse who cried wolf because she would just make up stuff and it wasn't true. And she also
Did you see the looks you just gave me?
I got mashed potato brain right now. But like whenever she would always just say that she was advocating for her patients. Like she was just there to take care of her patients. Like, I'm sorry that I thought this was that. I'm just here to take care of the patients. Like,
yeah.
Like, bitch, shut up. Anywho, August of 1979, she actually refused to leave work because she worked 2 consecutive total shifts, totaling around 16 hours. I ain't doing that. I work 8 hours. I'm going the hello fuzzy home. Like, I ain't staying. I'm sorry. Like, my shift ends at this time. I'm out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I work at a doctor's office now, but when I used to work at a hospital, let me tell you, my shift was from 2 to 10 o'clock. At 10 o'clock, when night shift came in, hey, here's this patient refused. All right, peace out. I'm out. I ain't staying. You can ask, but guess what?
Yeah,
no.
I mean, most people would be like you, but that's when you work, so it's time for you to go home.
And everybody's like, oh, don't you want the extra money? I don't give a shit. My physical, mental stuff is way more important than the extra money.
Especially when you work in a hospital.
That's the hospital I worked at. I hated that place. Anyway, she worked a total of the 16 hours, so they told her, yo, you need to go home, like, whatever. But she claimed that a 10-month-old patient needed her. Like,
there's nobody else there to help.
Yeah, like she thinks that she's just the best of the best and whatever. She, like, that baby needed her. The baby says, I need you, stay here. Maybe leave the jokes to me.
10 months old. It's 10 months.
I need you. Oh my gosh. Let me get a drink real quick. Gosh. Oh yeah, our drinks changed out. We ate Taco Bell. Up to my game. Despite all that, she actually stayed, even though protocol stated that she had to go. And they told her, you gotta go, but she apparently stayed. And the head nurse, Pat, let go. If I'm saying that correct, I don't know, I'm really bad at names, sue me. But she could not overlook this behavior and all that stuff. But with that, you're thinking, okay, she couldn't overlook it. Maybe finally she does something about it. Maybe she, was like, hey, you're taking a week off without pay, something like that.
Yeah.
But no, she just gave her a written warning, and she said that if this ever happens again, I'm gonna have to do something about it. Yeah. But Genene finally left. She's like, okay. So she leaves the hospital her shift ended at 11. So her shift was always from 3 to 11. And then her shift ended at 11. She actually returned back to the PICU at 5 a.m. way before her shift was even supposed to start. And she came in, she just walked straight back there to that patient, and she started just messing with their medication, adjusting it, doing all that stuff. And the nurses and doctors were like, what the fuck is she doing here? Like, what? No. So they went to go confront her, and when they went to go confront her, there was an alarmingly strong smell of alcohol on her breath, so she was intoxicated.
Oh, that's lovely.
Like, okay, let me go home.
Work intoxicated and work on babies.
Yeah, like my thing is I've worked 16 hours. I'm not going home and having a drink.
Yeah,
I'm going home, take a shower, wash my ass, and go to bed. That's what I'm gonna do. So they smelled the alcohol and they're like, oh, okay, no, like you need to go home now. Like, get out of here, go. At that point, if it was me, I would call security. Not even, I smell it, walk away.
Well, I mean, if she's coming into work drunk, whether she's supposed to be there or not, she should have got fired. Mm-hmm. Especially if she's working on babies.
Yeah, and my thing is, I ain't going into my job place once I'm off the clock.
Well, I mean, working on anybody. If you're a nurse and you come in drunk, no.
Go. Yeah.
Done.
But they told her to leave, and she did. And she stated, I'm not intoxicated. You know, they are like that crap. So you would think, okay, finally, now maybe, since Pat, the head nurse, they gave her that, this is the final one, that, okay, now she's going to do something. No. She gave her another written warning. And she claimed that this really was the final one. Like,
yeah.
No, it's what you kind of maybe said last time.
Mm-hmm.
One of the nurses recalled being terrified of Genene. Genene would always say something. Like, she would always predict, like, something that's going to happen to a patient or whatever. And one of the nurses said that she was, like, predicting it, and she, like, knew what was going to happen. When people questioned about it, she claimed that she was looking out for her young patients. Like, why would you say that? Well, I'm just looking out for them. I just have this feeling. No, you have this feeling because you're going to do it.
Because you know what's fixing to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see how they didn't catch on even with just that. Like, she's running around saying, okay, well, tonight's the night this baby's going to die, or tonight's the night this baby's going to, not be able to breathe, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then it happens right after she says that. I mean, that's suspicious to me.
Quote unquote, her first victim. From whatever I've read and all that stuff, people say that this is her first victim, but there really wasn't hard evidence that she did this. This just happened while this child was in her care. Her first victim was Chris Ortega, an infant that was less than a year old, was in the PICU in December of 1990 with symptoms of congestive heart failure. So, that's for a 1-year-old to be in congestive heart failure. That just sucks. Yeah, that's like way too young. Most of the time when you hear congestive heart failure, you think of someone who is much older. My grandfather has congestive heart failure, and he's like 82, I think. I don't really remember. But you don't think that you will see that of a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
And of course, Genene created a bond with the parents like she did before. And the parents were Diane and Chris Ortega. Sorry. Which, like, when she wasn't around the parents, she would say this to the other nurses. She would say, tonight's the night. He's going to die. Like, it's going to happen tonight. Because his condition just kept getting worse and worse. So they really didn't bat an eye with it. They knew that, okay, I think so too. He's not really had the best day today. So they really didn't really be like, what the hell would she say that? Like, he just no, he was getting bad and worse and worse. In the May of 1981, Chris actually developed hepatitis, which is not fun to be around or have to deal with. I just want,
how do you develop hepatitis in the hospital, though?
I don't know. Most of the time, hepatitis is, for most people, when you see hepatitis, you think of it's mostly drug IV users, people who use. Here's the thing: most people don't know this. People who are addicted to drugs and stuff, they will go to the ER and they will get an IV inserted in them, and then they would bounce. They would leave AMA and use that IV to inject drugs into themselves. So they're IV drug users. Seen a lot of those people, and
wow,
with
babies though.
I don't know if maybe she was doing it, sticking with a dirty needle, like reusing a needle or something like that, and all that. But he developed it. I should have probably done a little bit more research. You would think, I work with blood every daggum day. I would know that maybe it could be something that can develop later on in your life. I don't know. But with the hepatitis, it actually affected his heart even more. And his heart declined. The condition of his heart kept declining. And Genene just became even more fixated on it. Which, that's just horrible. Like, oh my gosh, she's going to die?
Oh, well, she's got to be around him when he does, because then she's going to act like she's the one that took care of him.
Mm-hmm. But, you would think that somebody, an angel of death, or some people say this, like angel of death, they're putting them out of misery, but also people like they like to bring him close to death, to bring him back, and be like, I'm the savior, like, I'm this, like, they want to play God, almost. Yeah. But in her way, she doesn't, she just kills, because she's thinking she's putting them out of their misery. But, like, some of these patients were, like, perfectly healthy, fine. One night after I got Gina in my head. Gina, bitch. Genene left Chris's room. They heard a loud crash and a baby just wailing and crying. So the nurses, they all ran in there, and apparently Chris had rolled out of his bed and onto the floor because Genene, when she left the room, she forgot to put the side railing up on the bed, onto the bed. And the parents of Chris, they knew that it was a mistake. Like Genene, she said that, yeah, I did that. I'm so sorry. Like, I forgot to put it back up, all this stuff. So I don't know if this was actually she did forget to do it or she did it on purpose.
I still think she did it on purpose. That's my opinion.
That's my opinion.
That's my opinion.
So, I mean, and the parents, they were just kind of like, oh, it's okay. Like, yeah, we understand, whatever. And Chris was unharmed. He was perfectly fine. Like, they had checked him over, everything. He's perfectly fine. So, and she was also just given a written warning with this, too. Yeah. There was going. Yeah, there was no consequences, no anything like that. So, it was just kind of another slap on the wrist. You would think her wrist would be sore by now. After this, poor little baby Chris, his condition just kept getting worse and worse. And it just deteriorated. And a week after the fall, Chris actually passed away of cardiac arrest. So, people, that's what I'm saying. People don't know if she had done anything to him or whatever. But that was the first, I guess, quote unquote, patient that had died in her care. So they said it's a first and everything, but later on, that her main tactic was injecting drugs into her patients, but nothing was injected. The only thing that she did was leave the railing down that caused him to fall. So we don't know if this fall was just made everything worse, but from what they said, he was unharmed. It could just been, he was a sick little baby. Bless his heart. Dr. James Robotham. Okay, I'm sorry, bad with names again. Who worked with Genene later theorized that Genene may have killed Chris by saying this, over injecting with an overdose of dilatins. It's a heart medication. I'll put the name here or whatever, but it's still unclear. I mean, he was already in congestive heart failure. I don't, it's just one of those things. You don't know. He could have had an extra dose of it or whatever, but they think it was her because the baby was in her care from all from. I mean, I'm not defending the lady or whatever. She has a lot of horrible stuff, but as the months went on, more and more babies started dying in the PICU. Babies shouldn't be dying in the PICU like a large amount of what happened here. It's I'm thinking within, let's say 3-4 months, maybe 2 to 3 of babies, I would say. Maybe once a month or so. But, I mean, that's not like how these babies are dying. That should not be something normal. They noticed a pattern in the babies that would be fine until one nurse would leave their shift and they would learn that the babies have had cardiac arrest or seizures during the next shift that was Genene's shift. So these nurses would be taking care of the babies at the PICU, and they would be perfectly fine when they left, stabilized, everything's...
Until bitch came on shift, and then everything went sideways.
And they would notice, okay, so the nurse is like, okay, hey, yeah, this is little baby Jimmy Jr. And they would be like, oh, yeah, he's stabilized, everything, blah, 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 blah. Okay, bye. All right, next shift. Hey, you remember old baby Jimmy Jr.? Yeah, he had a seizure and cardiac arrest and all this. Mm-hmm. And it's all because of Genene. It was her shift that took over, and it was those babies. 2-year-old Rosemary Vega came in for a heart surgery. It was just, one of those, it was a routine. When I think routine, I think is something that's should be a normal thing. Wisdom teeth surgery, stuff like that. It's a routine. But, it was just a normal heart surgery or whatever, and she was alert, she was fine, and all that stuff before surgery. Took her into surgery. When she got into surgery, she started having respiratory issues. And with that, they did have to vent her, and they sent her to the PICU, and Genene was the nurse for that. She took care of baby Rosemary. I think baby Rosemary, I think of that devil.
Oh, Rosemary's Baby?
Yeah.
The movie? Yeah.
Information is unclear at this point. Some of the nurses noted that Rosemary, one of the nurses that came in during her shift and that was taking care of Rosemary, noticed that her ventilator was set, the oxygen level was set too low, and it was she wasn't getting fed enough oxygen. So she changed the settings, and baby Rosemary stabilized. And then Genene came in for her shift and went into Rosemary's room, and the child's mother was there with her. Rosemary's mom was there. And the mother noticed that Genene injected something into her daughter's IV line. And when she questioned her about it, she's like, oh, I'm just giving something for her to relax or to like rest and everything. She's on a ventilator. Like, most of the time they have them sedated anyway, so they don't, yank it out of their throat or anything like that. They are sedated. I don't understand why she's giving them something to rest. But after she injected that, a few minutes later, baby Rosemary went into cardiac arrest. And they worked on her for 2 hours.
And she did that with her mom sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Rosemary went into cardiac arrest, and they worked on her for 2 hours, and she was pronounced dead. Bless her heart. Just for a routine heart surgery she probably just needed a few days to kind of recruit, and she would have been on her way home, and she would have been grown, had a family, walked down the aisle and all that stuff, and this bitch took it away from her. She never had kids, never had any of that.
If I was her mom.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of these parents, they don't know. They just see, because she creates such a big bond with, the parents and all that stuff. That's the last thing on her mind is they wouldn't think that it would have been her that had done this. Like, oh my gosh, no, it would never have been her.
Well, she's doing that on purpose so she can take the attention off of that part.
Yeah.
Like, she wants them to think she's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Of course, she wants everybody to think she's great. But
bitch,
you ain't great. Okay.
Bitch, you ain't great.
You ain't great. Okay.
One nurse named Nurse Susan she started noticing there was a lot of deaths in the PICU, and she was kind of like, that doesn't seem right. And she had her suspicions with Genene, and I would too. Mm-hmm. But she really needed cold hard facts to, she just can't walk up to the head nurse, Pat, and be like, hey, this is what's going on. And then she's like, okay, where's the evidence?
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. Like, if I was in that position and I was a nurse with her, and I'm seeing these things go on when she is with each of these children, I would start taking notes of my own to try to catch her in it to save these kids.
But I'm with you. Like, I would, if I started like noticing, like after one, like with the whole Chris thing, I'm kind of, I could see too, like, okay, so you're getting congestive heart failure. Like, yeah, okay. And then like once it goes to Rosemary, I'd be like,
I know you got 2 or 3 that,
and
kids passing away with this woman right next to him. As a colleague, you're going to be like, what's happening? Because if you're working with her, then you know that baby was going to be okay 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I would be trying to figure out what she was doing and turn her in.
Yeah, that's what Susan did. She started,
go Susan.
That's what she did. She started, getting evidence and all that stuff because she needed that. Genene's colleagues, her co-workers and all that, they called Genene's shift. Like I said, her shift was from 3 to 11 p.m. The shift was called death shift because of how many babies died during her shift.
Yeah, see, they're calling it that, but nobody's taking their own notes and trying to turn this bitch in except for Susan.
Yeah. Like,
your
guys, it's like you're talking shit. You're like, oh my gosh, did you see that? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
do something about it.
Yeah. Look at us being all twins saying shit. Oh, my tongue flew. So they called it the death shift, which, that would be horrible. Like, oh my gosh, like, you can imagine, like, if we worked the day shift, and like, oh golly, here comes the death shift.
That's bad.
Yeah. And in late September, a 4-month-old named Paul, poor little Paul, hey, I'm Paul, was admitted to the PICU after an elective skull surgery. So apparently, I don't know much about the kid, but they had surgery and he was perfectly fine, and he was expected to go home the following day. So after the surgery, they just send him to the PICU just to kind of look over him, just make sure that everything was okay and the surgery went well and all that. And he was expected to go home until death shift came in. It was theorized that Genene actually injected poor Paul with a large dose of heparin. Heparin is an anticoagulation, so it is to thin your blood, aka blood thinner. So she injected this baby with heparin. I'm so sorry. Paul's condition deteriorated. So he was perfectly fine, whatever, expected to go home, and then, like I said, this bitch comes in and just fucks everything up. He started to have seizures and he was struggling to breathe, and the doctors actually had to put him on a respiratory system, so they vented him. But sadly enough, that was not enough for them to save his life, and he ultimately died in cardiac arrest. So, just came in for a normal skull surgery, was perfectly fine, was ready to go home, and she just had to kill him. I don't know why. I don't know why she feels like, children is the ticket. I mean, all deaths, killing people are horrible and everything like that, but it's like when it comes to kids, it's the worst.
Yeah, it's like we said before, kids and animals, they don't have a voice.
Yeah, they don't.
You have to be their voice. You have to take care of them. They need you.
Yeah.
And for you to do that, no, you got to go.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
That October, 6-month-old Jose Antonio Flores was admitted for a common symptoms. He had a fever, vomit, and diarrhea. So
basically a virus or something. He just needed fluids, probably.
Mm-hmm. And because of the vomiting and the diarrhea, you can be dehydrated with that. So he just probably needed some little bit of saline, whatever, just kind of somebody to really look over him and take care of him. But of course, his condition deteriorated. He was having seizures, and the doctor actually ordered a brain scan. So they did the brain scan, but Genene was the nurse for little Jose, and she wanted to go down there to the scan with him. And it's unclear at this too, there's not really hard evidence that she did this, but apparently she injected him with heparin too, and he just deteriorated faster, and he actually died of cardiac arrest. So after his death, she was like, of course she was in a connection with the parents again, and she's very like consultative with the parents and all that stuff, and that's the right word I used. And she had him wrapped up. She took all the leaves and everything off and had him wrapped up in a blanket. And she was just, all that. And Jose had an older brother, and the older brother really wanted to hold his baby brother. So Genene gave him baby brother, and she actually allowed the family to carry him down to the morgue. But Jose older brother was holding his baby brother. And as they're walking down there to the morgue, something snapped in her. I don't know if it was the of what she did or anything like that. Nobody really knows why she did this. But apparently she just took baby Jose back and just took off running throughout the hospital. And the family chased after her, but they lost her because some hospitals are very large and confusing, and they have, turns and all this and that and everything.
All hospitals are confusing.
So they lost her in the chase and everything. And you're thinking, okay, finally, like, this is some batshit stuff. Like, she's got to get in trouble. No. She was then again just given a warning. Like, hey, let's not do that again. Like, okay, how many times are you going to say that?
Yeah.
So it's just...
Shame on her supervisor.
Shame on you, Pat. Yeah, I'm not going to say what I want to say. Back to Susan.
Pat.
That nerd. Bad Pat?
Bad practice.
Okay. So back to Susan, the nurse. With all these deaths and everything under Genene's care, She started writing down the deaths and the time and each patient's died.
Susan.
Yeah, I do too. Hell yeah, Susan.
Go, Susan.
Oh, Susan. So she started writing down like the deaths and the time and all that stuff for over the past 10 months. So she started looking way back and everything. And with that, the numbers were, we don't know what the numbers were. Like all that stuff she got, we don't know. But she brought this to the head nurse, Pat. And Pat dismissed this as gossip. Like she was just kind of like, it's gossip. Like, no.
Pat. You have issues.
Patty cake.
I hope you are not a supervisor. Anymore.
Yeah. So you're thinking, oh great, okay, now all this is gonna go unseen. But apparently, I guess Susan really put her foot down. She's like, nah, bitch, like, look at this shit. Like, here. Like, I want you to physically look at this. And with that, Pat was like, she looked at him, she was like, oh, shit. Like, okay, now I cannot turn a blind eye to this. Like, she's got a lot of information.
Yeah, like, even if you're like, okay, well, you're just gossiping, at least take it to your office and sit down and actually look at it and go over it.
Yeah.
And see for yourself what it says or what it doesn't say or, you know, timelines and all that stuff. Like, figure it out. Like, don't just ignore that.
Yeah.
I mean, because she's basically gave her a, you know, slap on the wrist 5 or 6 times now. I mean, she's got to know that if all this stuff's been, you know, written down and somebody's saying something about it, and then the things that she has swept under the rug this far, it's like, I know, you should know something's going on, you know?
And apparently she was like very nervous. Like Susan was very nervous bringing this information to her. I would be too. Like, for somebody, like you said, you know, they just kept swept it on the rug, giving warnings. I'd be scared to do
Well, it's like you said earlier, they probably think like, oh, well, she's a favorite.
Yeah.
So she's not going to listen to me anyway because, you know, Pat's up Janine's butt or whatever.
Yeah.
You know.
They're butt buddies. That's what I'm thinking. They're like, you guys are like attached to the hip. But she was nervous and everything. And then with that information, Pat was like, okay. So she took all this information to the evidence and all that to the medical director, Jim.
Finally.
Robuffin. And with that, they were like, okay, yeah, we're going to definitely do something about this. So they launched a internal investigation in the fall of 1981. But you're thinking, okay, they're doing an investigation. They're going to like let Genene go for, you know, suspend her or whatever until the investigation is over. Most of the time they will do that. They're like, hey, you're being suspended pending investigation.
Yeah.
No. Genene stayed on her shift and she stayed with everything and all that. So she got to stay on the shift while everything like that.
No, they should have suspended her. If they're investigating what she's doing, she should have been suspended. Definitely.
And like I said earlier, you know, she has Munchausen and all that stuff. So she would always go to doctors and everything. And with that, all this time with the investigation going on, she actually admitted herself to the ICU. Well, she didn't admit herself, but she went to the ER and everything, and they admitted her to the ICU for complaining of abdominal pain and nausea. No, why are you going to the ICU for that? Like,
yeah, you just be in the emergency room for 5 hours like the rest of the world.
Like my mom the other night. Of course, they found nothing because there was nothing wrong with her. She just wanted the attention. She wanted all that stuff. She has Munchausen. It's a mental health, you know. And they discharged her after 3 days. So she spent in the ICU for 3 days, and they discharged her because there wasn't anything wrong with her. But you know what's so funny about that? Is that while she was there was no death in the PICU.
Of course not.
You would think with that, okay.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong.
Yeah.
So Jim, the medical director, actually got a hematologist involved, and he sent in to analyze a blood sample and saw that 2 of the children, so he sent in multiple blood samples, and 2 of the children that she took care of actually died of an overdose of heparin. And the 2 children were Paul and Jose, but they didn't have enough to really tie to Genene.
How?
I don't know. I don't understand that. Like, okay, she was the nurse on call for that care.
Yeah.
Like, Why are you
Like,
not?
she was there. She was the one that got the drug. She was the one that gave it to him. How do you not?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Stupid. December of 1981, 11-month-old Joshua Sawyer was admitted to the PICU in critical condition after suffering smoke inhale, like he inhaled inhalation during a house fire, and he slipped into a coma in the ambulance. After a few days, his health improved until Genene took over care. So, again, he was perfectly fine. You know, he just needed to kind of fight this stuff off and everything. And until she came along, man, he just kind of just went to shit. This part we really don't know. Not really me, because it's my case. Don't know if it's true or not, but apparently she told the parents that if Joshua was ever to recover from this, he would be permanent brain damage and he would be better off dead. Like, I would never say that to anybody ever.
Don't say that to a patient.
I mean, I would never make promises or anything like that. Like, you know, and my thing too is that she's a nurse. She's an LVN. Like, she's not an RN. She has
no right to do that.
Yeah. Like, for me as a phlebotomist, I can't tell you the results of your blood work. I have no right to. The person who has to do that is the doctor. Like, he has a medical degree for that. Like, not even the nurses can, you know, give you results or whatever. I guess a nurse practitioner can, because they can do all that. But, like, you don't say that to the patients. Like, you don't even give false hope. Like, oh, he's totally going to pull through. You know,
yeah, you can't do that.
No, you don't know what, today might be good, tomorrow might be worse, and then, you know. So, yeah, this was, she told the parents that he would be better off dead.
That's horrible.
Some say that the reason why she said this is just to kind of prepare them for what she was about to do. So, during her shift the following day, she actually injected Joshua with a massive dose of Dilantin. I think that's how you say it. It is a sedative prescribed to prevent seizures. So it's a type of medication to help prevent seizures. She gave him more than double maximum dose, and it caused his blood pressure to plummet, and he was sent into cardiac arrest.
Oh, this bitch got to go.
Yeah. With that, they actually took his blood work and they sent it down to the lab to maybe hopefully try to figure out why this was happening. But before they could get the results back on that blood work, Joshua actually passed away from cardiac arrest.
And like, probably all these kids would have been fine. Mm-hmm. That's just so sad.
I know, that's what you think about, like all these, like they'll never get to walk down the aisle, they'll never get to graduate high school, and they'll never get to, have another Christmas again.
And they would have if it wasn't been for her crazy shit.
So, and then after he died, the test results came back, and it was shown that a toxic level of Dilantin, I think that's how I'm saying that correctly. With that, Jim, the medical director, he was like, okay, like, no. So he put in a new order that if anything happened, if any of the patients had coded or anything like that, he was to be notified immediately. But mostly it was Genene's patients that he wanted to be notified on immediately, because he knew that the whole investigation was going on.
Well,
he knew
that
shit was up.
Ones that were coding all the time because she was doing stuff to them.
And with all that stuff, Genene actually caught wind that they were pretty much targeting her.
Oh, boo-hoo.
I know. So she was livid. And she was not afraid of conflicts, and she ripped to Jim and confronted him and asking him, like, why are you ordering unnecessary tests? Like, why are you doing all this to me and all that stuff? And when and Jim actually answered with, I don't know. Like, it's kind of was like, I don't know. Why should I? Like, why should I be worried about your patients? Like, what's, like, Susan over there, her patients are fine. Like, why should I be worried? So,
yeah, but you also don't want to say stuff like, well, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing this. And then she's already nuts, so let's not make her even more mad so she don't go in there and do something to every baby that's in.
Retaliate. Yeah. Like, she wants to, like, take her anger out on the children. Genene actually made threats to Jim, saying that she had written down every detail about her patient, and she actually written down who the doctors were. So she was kind of blackmailing him in a way. And he was like, "Oh hell no, bitch!" and he tried to get her fired. Well, that didn't work.
A long time ago.
Yeah. So he tried to get her fired, and when he brought all this stuff, they were pretty much on Genene's side, being like, "Well, you came at her, attacking her. You know, she was just trying to take care of her patients. Like, she just lost, all these patients. Why are you attacking her and all that stuff?" And with that, they actually suspended Jim he was on temporary leave for a month.
I just can't believe that she's gotten away with this so long.
Mm-hmm.
And people are just not paying any attention. Like, I don't know. It's just so weird that how long she got away with it.
Yeah, and Jim also felt the same way, that they were just sweeping it under the rug, what was happening in the PICU.
Yeah.
So he got suspended for a month, and probably 4 more children died under Genene's care.
Ugh.
One of them was a 2-year-old named Dora Rios, who died of cardiac arrest. When she was making her notes and everything in the chart, she actually wrote in Dora's notes saying that Dora was a legend of her own time, and she ended it with the words, "I love you." That's just weird. I'm sorry. A few days after Christmas, a 1-year-old named Roland Santos was admitted to the PICU for a simple pneumonia case. So it was just, it's December. It's Texas, so it wouldn't be cold. So I mean, it's just normal pneumonia. Mm-hmm. Just maybe you needed some medication, just some close eye watching on. And he came in and everything, and he actually started to improve, and they're like, "Oh, okay, he's really getting better." But there's always that but word.
Then Genene came in.
Yeah, crazy. The death shift. 2 days later, without explanations, there was no reason why, whatever, she injected him with heparin. And he had a seizure, and his blood pressure tanked, and he became dehydrated, and his blood wouldn't clot. That's because of the heparin.
Mm-hmm.
It's a blood thinner. And so the doctors thought he had a clotting disorder because of that. No, it's because the bitch stuck him with a needle. We'll put it in his IV or whatever. So at this time, Jim, the medical director, was suspended at the time. So there was another one that stepped up. His name was Dr. Kenneth Copeland. He was suspicious of all this. He smelt the shit too, just like all the rest of them. And he was like, "I don't understand. Like, there should be no medical reason why he's acting like this with the normal case of pneumonia. Like, for him to now his blood's not clotting and all that." So he's like, "This isn't right." So after watching poor Roland fight for several days with no other explanations of what was going on, he was like, "Okay, somebody's doing this to him."
Mm-hmm.
So he ordered a blood test, and with that, it showed a high dose of heparin in his system. And at this point, he stabilized. The kid stabilized, and which he was very close to death. So with that, Dr. Kenneth was like, "Okay, you know what? We're going to transfer him out of the PICU. Like, get out of the PICU, transfer him." And he placed the kid under guard because he knew somebody was doing this. And so there was, I don't know if it was whoever came in and out of it or whatever, like they had to sign, they had to be on a list, or you had to be on a list to even get in. Well, Genene apparently wasn't allowed in.
Good, finally.
Mm-hmm. So she had
that child was lucky.
Yeah. So she had to watch him from afar as he got better and everything, and he actually got to go home in mid-January.
Yay!
So survivor.
Awesome.
Yeah. But by mid-February, a team of 6 specialists was assembled to investigate these amount of deaths that have happened in the PICU, and they began to really hone in on Genene, like because of the whole investigation and all that stuff. And they actually made a new thing that they were getting rid of all their LVNs. That's what Genene was. She was an LVN, and they were going to replace them with RNs. that's where it kind of sucks because it was just mostly her they were trying to get rid of.
Yeah.
So, okay, she got displaced, but like, let's say there's like 6 other LVNs. Now they're getting
They're
fired.
going to all lose their jobs.
Yeah. So Genene was kind of like, whenever this whole thing came out, I guess in a meeting or whatever, Genene was like, you know what? I get it. You guys want to get rid of me. Okay, spare everybody else. I will leave. Like, screw you guys. Excuse me, I'm gonna home. So, she actually, there was another doctor that apparently she worked with at a hospital and everything. Her name was Dr. Catherine Holland. She was, like I said, she was a friend and everything, and she actually started her own practice in a clinic. And it was about 70 miles north of San Antonio. Kathleen actually heard the rumors of everything that was going on with Genene, but she didn't believe any of the rumors. She was like, she's my friend. She would never do anything like that, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, but when you have a medical practice, I'm sorry, even if there's rumors and you kind of don't believe them, I don't think you should take that chance. If there's even anything said and you're going to hire somebody, about that person like that, I mean, me personally, I would not take that chance.
No, I wouldn't either. But she was like, all right, I'll hire you. So she hires her. And so in the March of 1982, Genene actually handed in her letter of resignation at Bexar County Hospital. And in August of 1982, Genene started working with Dr. Catherine in her office. You should have never done that, bitch. You about to... Catherine,
you made a mistake, Catherine.
Yep. If I could go back, I'd be like, don't do it, run! Fuzzy. In September, Patty McClannon brought her 15-month-old named Chelsea Ann McClannon to the clinic they say that they don't know, like, she really wasn't, it was like, I guess she said this in a way to Dr. Catherine, like, oh, she's having this. So she's like, all right, bring her in. What she brought her in for was a thing called blue spells. Blue spells is a reduced oxygen level causing infants' lips and skin to take a blue tinge. So she was having a little bit of oxygen problems and everything. When she brought her daughter in, Kathleen sent her, Kathleen saw her, checked her out. She was like, okay. So she sent her over to another room that had Genene in it. And Genene was standing there. So she walks in, she's standing there with a syringe. Like, I would be like, oh, put that away. Like, hold on. So she comes in, she sits down, and the mother sits down, Patty sits down, she has Chelsea in her lap. And she's holding her, and she injects her with what the mother thought was just a measles mumps vaccine. It was a vaccine.
Here's my thing, though. She's in there for oxygen problems. Why are you giving her vaccines?
Unless whenever she brought her into, she's like, oh, hey, by the way, she's due for a vaccine. Why are you here? We're just going to do it. Because they've done that at the doctor's office. To be like, they'll just come in for a cough or whatever, and most of the time be like, hey, you want the flu shot right here? It was kind of one of those things. I'm not really sure. Yeah, I guess it could have been it. It's just, I don't know what your vaccine, because she's 15 months old, so I don't know at what age you vaccine. I don't have kids, so I don't know. But it was not the vaccine. Dun, dun, dun. Of course.
Surprise.
Yeah. It was a lethal dose of acetidine. I think that's how you say it. I don't know. All the words that I'm saying, all the medication, it's all going to be right here. Medication is hard to pronounce and say. Which is a powerful muscle relaxant that actually, it's a scary drug. Because apparently it causes the person to be able to not move or breathe, but is still conscious. So can you imagine just laying there? What's going on.
Basically, it paralyzes somebody.
Yeah. So
but they're conscious.
Yeah. After she injected her with that, Chelsea actually began to struggle. She was struggling to breathe, and Patty, the mother, was begging Genene. She's like, "Oh my gosh, do something! Like, what is going on?" Freaking out. And Genene she was kind of nonchalant about it, and she was just saying, she's just reacting to the pain of the shot. No children.
No, they might cry for a minute.
Yeah.
And they're over it.
Some of these kids have those holding the breath spells. They'll hold their breath until they kind of pass out or whatever. But she immediately just went into not be able to breathe. Like, so she's like, oh, it's just because of the reaction of the pain from the injection. And then Genene injects her again with another shot. Like, why are you doing it twice?
What's in that one?
Yeah, nobody. Oh no, like, hey, the vaccine was like a measles, mumps. I don't know if measles. Like, I guess it might be 2 different types of vaccine. I don't know if it's all together in one.
There's a bunch of them that are like all together in one now. They just give one shot and it's got like 5 different things in it, so you don't have to get so many shots.
But when she injected her with the other shot of, it could be the same thing that Chelsea's skin actually turned blue and she started having a seizure. With that, it caused, I guess, an alert to Kathleen. She probably heard like the mother being like, ah!
Yeah.
And frantic Kathleen actually called the ambulance, and it was Kathleen, Genene, and Patty, the mother, in the ambulance with Chelsea on the way to the hospital. And once they got to the hospital, they stabilized the little baby, and they actually transferred her to another hospital. In the ambulance again was all 3 of them again, and like during the ride there, she was stabilized, she was all good and everything, but not for long. She was not stabilized for long because she started flatlining. She flatlined. And when they arrived at the hospital, they tried for 20 minutes to resuscitate her, and they failed to do so, and she was pronounced dead. Neuropathologist actually did a scan and all that, and noticed there was scarring on Chelsea's brain stems, and with that, they pronounced, or they said that she probably died of SIDS. I don't believe that.
No.
I mean, of course, because we know what she did, but SIDS, most of the time when I hear SIDS, I think, like, most of the time they die in their sleep.
Yeah, small babies dying in their sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I don't know what this doctor was thinking. He's stupid. You think that's what it's going to be? With that, it did start raising some flags and everything, because over the next month, another 6 patients had medical emergencies at the clinic, and they were all under Genene's watch. In a month. Like, okay, if you were
Kathleen now, she's probably like, oh crap, what have I done?
Kathleen's like, okay, no, what have I done? Mm-hmm. But my thing too is like, okay, 6 months, you would think that you're gonna get caught now. You're 6 of them in a month.
Yeah.
Like, space that shit out, girl. Like, you're stupid. But the word actually got around town quick, because they were in a small town. So the word got around quick, and they were probably like, don't go there, this happened. Sid Peterson was the closest hospital from Kathleen's clinic, and that's where, all these people would go to because they were closest. They actually reached out to, they started digging into Kathleen, because they're thinking this is Kathleen's fault. They're not looking at Genene, they're looking at Kathleen, because this is her clinic and everything. So they actually reached out to a young surgeon who did their residency at Bexar County Clinic, or hospital, because that's where Kathleen was working and all this stuff. That's how Genene and all them got friends and all that. So with that, they're like, hey, about Kathleen, whatever. He's like, oh, hold on, let me call around, let me ask some of these people. So he called around, and he called some old colleagues to figure out what was going on, and it didn't take long for him to uncover the path. And they're like, oh yeah, how this happened and all that happened. So he was kind of like, oh, what the hell? And all of it was pointing, everything they said was back to Genene Jones, because that her name just kept coming up. Actually, one of the colleagues that worked with Genene contacted the young surgeon, and was like, he said, quote, that you have a baby killer on your hands.
Finally, somebody's, putting 2 and 2 together and figuring that it's, figuring her out. Like, oh my gosh, it took long enough. Like, all these poor babies in that hospital and everything. Jeez.
Yeah. Kathleen noticed that she, medication was missing, and then it would come back on the shelf, but it would reappear with the holes in the rubber stopper. So, I mean, it would show, like, I think it was the medication that, you know, she used to inject Chelsea with and everything. Like, it would go missing and then it'd come back and it'd be poked. Like, the holes would be poked and all that. With that, like, Kathleen, at that moment, she's like, okay, I made a mistake. I made a mistake hiring her. She's like, okay, I'm done. I'm about to fire her.
Yep.
With that, this is another part of a warning right here, that Genene caught when this was happening, and she actually tried to commit suicide. And she left a note behind, and she pretty much blamed Kathleen for everything and all that. And she
want to teach it again.
Yeah. And she tried to blame her for it, and she attempted, and she survived the attempt and everything. And with that, like, she, you know, was like, okay, I'm going to do all this stuff, whatever. And Kathleen was going to contact the police and all that, but St. Peterson already contacted law enforcement. So they were already on it.
Yeah.
They were like, okay, why you try to figure it, like, you can do whatever you want, we're going to contact law enforcement. So with that, Texas Rangers showed up to the clinic to interview both her, Genene, and Kathleen about the deaths at the clinic. Genene said that, she goes, I've never hurt anybody. I've never killed nobody. Like, why would I do that? I'm just, you know, taking care of my patients. She's like, I'll take a polygraph. Like, I'll do it. I ain't lying. The sheriffs called bluff. They're like, all right, let's go. So they escorted to Austin to undergo the test, in which she failed.
Of course she did.
Yeah. They didn't have much evidence on her, so they kind of just had to let her go. I don't understand why then bring her in if you know you don't have evidence and all that stuff. So they let her go, and with that, Genene knew. She's like, okay, oh shit, like, shit's hitting the fan. Mm-hmm. Like, I need to get out of Dodge.
Right.
So with that, she was like, okay, I gotta go. But she already knew her next destination. Flashback to the little boy, Chris, that she became really attached with and everything, the one that had congestive heart failure. She was really connected with the mother and the father. They actually lived in San Angelo, that was about 150 miles away from Kerrville. That's where she was at with the clinic. She called them up, and they're like, oh my gosh, because they loved her to death, because in their eyes, she could do no wrong. She took care of their baby, like all this and that. Yeah. And they were like, yeah, sure, you can come down here and live with us for a while, blah, 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 blah. So she started packing up her belongings in October of 1982. And with that, the investigation against her in Kerrville was gathering steam. Like, so they were really getting up some stuff. In the case that had passed all the way up, like, they were, you know, getting all that stuff, and they were, the case had been passed all the way up to a district attorney who convinced a grand jury to take into the death of Chelsea. So they were like, you know, they were working, and then they brought it all to that, and they were like, okay, we'll do the Chelsea, we're going to charge her for that. And also at this time, Bexar County Hospital also was, they were reaching up in their investigation too, because the investigation was still going on about her there at that hospital. So they were getting some information together too. With that, 30 children had died in 1981. That's a whole year. Like, 30 children die in 1 year at the PICU up there. That's ridiculous. And at least 20 of the deaths were during Genene's shift. Oh gosh. Yeah.
Those poor kids.
Mm-hmm. At this time, Genene actually arrived in San Angelo with her children in tow, and she eventually found work working at a school for adults with learning disability. And as far as we know, she didn't do any harm to them or anybody else during this time while she was there.
That's good.
Yeah. In February of 1983, 4 months after Genene moved to San Angelo, headlines about the mysterious deaths in Texas again started to appear in it was just like the local news and all this stuff, and then became nationwide. And Genene was scrutinized as, like, she was the main suspect. I was going to say victim, not victim. Suspect and all that stuff. And, like, even in the press and all that stuff, like, they were just dragging her through the mud, which they should.
Yep.
I mean, she did this shit.
Mm-hmm.
But like in her, like she was not found at this part. She was not charged yet. They haven't got to her yet and everything. But in the eyes of the public, she was guilty. Like she was being like whatever in the public eye, and they dubbed her as baby killer, of course, because that's what she is.
Mm-hmm.
In May of 1983, the Kirkville County prosecutor said that she, injuring 7 other children by injecting them with a muscle relaxing of drugs. So like they were like, okay, this is what we're going to charge her with. Like this is what she did. She tried to run. Also, at this time, she got remarried and all that stuff. And I'm not going to, like, some of that information is whatever. But this, you need to know that she got remarried because she tried to actually run and hide. And she...
Like, who is marrying her?
I don't know. Like, it's all over the news and everything.
Yeah.
Like, you got to know. Like, I don't want to give... No, go away from me. She ran and hid around... It was about 150 miles away from Odessa. And that's where her husband's family, her in-laws lived, so that she ran there. By the end of May, Texas Rangers actually found her, and they took her into custody, and things kind of moved swiftly with the whole thing. And after that, trial began, and just 8 months later, in 1985, just 5 weeks, the jury, during all that 5 weeks, the jury heard evidence that Genene had murdered 15-month-old Chelsea by injecting her with the whatever. So with that, they were like, okay, this whole case was just focused on Chelsea,
right?
One of the key witness of all this stuff was Kathleen, who spent several days testifying against Genene. And she gave
she wishes she never would have hired her.
Yeah. Like,
yeah.
Just to think, we're friends. I don't believe, like.
Yeah, but why is somebody talking like that? You know what I mean? Like, if you're, a nurse somewhere, people aren't just going to start saying something about you like that. Mm-hmm. Like, all the time for no reason. Like, because most people don't pay attention. They're worried about themselves. They're not watching what you're doing. Like,
yeah,
you're just on another shift and nobody's, you're just doing what you're supposed to be doing. Everything's fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's,
but, I mean, it would just be weird, like, if I had to do that, like, if you did something, like, I wouldn't even know how I would feel and react, and just to know that somebody, like, that was your friend and all that stuff, just do something like this. But she spent, several days testifying against her and everything, and she was giving detailed accounts to the event that led to Chelsea's death. She actually also described several other near miss, like, medical emergencies that had suffered during Genene's care. So she, talked about the other stuff that happened in the clinic too, not just about Chelsea's. That February, 33-year-old Genene Jones was found guilty of murdering and was sentenced to 99 years in prison.
Bye, Genene.
But
see you never.
So now she's like, all right, you got convicted Chelsea's death. All right, next to come in, because now it is Bexar County Hospital's turn to get justice. Despite of all the victims she had killed, the prosecutor felt that the strongest case they had against her was the murder of Roland Santos, that 4-week-old who survived from being injected with the heparin and all that stuff. They felt like that was, the best, because that's probably what the most information or thing they had on her, because the moment, she got away from him, all that.
Yeah.
So, October of 1984, Genene was found guilty of injuring of him and everything, and was sentenced to 60 years. So she's got 99 on top.
Now she's got 60 on top of that.
In 2017, 30 years after going to prison, Genene became eligible for parole. Yeah. And prosecutors and Bexar County Hospital determined, like, they were like, oh, hell no, like, you are going to stay behind bars. Mm-hmm. So with that, they charged her with the murder of 11-month-old Joshua Sawyer, who was injected with the same, like, sedatives and all that. And so this is 2017, but so it took until 2020. She actually pled guilty to killing Joshua and sentenced to life. And she has no chance of ever being free. So no more of that. She's in there for the rest of her life.
I can't believe she pleaded guilty for that. I wonder if there was like a plea bargain or something where she was like avoiding the death penalty or something. Because I mean, most people are not going to plead guilty.
Does Texas have death penalty?
I think so.
If we're wrong, I won't put
We'll put yes or no right here.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
I don't know.
I think so.
Does Tennessee?
Yes.
We do? Okay. I don't know what all states, but I don't know if Texas, you would think Texas would do how it is. The number of death of children that she has caused is unknown. Like, nobody knows. But some people believe, authorities and everybody believes that she's responsible up to 60 children's death.
That's so
60.
Sad.
Like, that's 60 children that will never have a Christmas again, never get married, never have the children of their own, never see their mom and dad get old, like, never of anything like that. And that's 60 parents out there, even, like, that will never see their child do any of that again, all because of this woman wanted to play a little game of
pay attention to me.
Yeah, and like life and death, and more of death, not life.
That's horrible.
As of right now, Genene is still alive and she is in prison. So, yeah, that's where you need to be.
Yeah,
you need
for
to
real.
Mm-hmm.
Need to rot.
One thing she quoted after years of everything, Genene actually claimed that the reason she was compelled to kill the children, the babies, because, quote unquote, the voices in my head pretty much told her to do it.
She has mental problems.
And, like, I don't know, I guess in a way they were trying to throw that during trial and stuff, that she couldn't stand trial or whatever.
Yeah.
And from what I read, they were they smelt the bullshit and they were like, nah. Like, she knows what she was doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the story of Genene Jones, the baby killer, PICU killer, bitch lady.
I hope all the families out there are okay that lost their children, because that's horrible.
I mean, to think that your child is being put in an area that they are going to be taken care of and everything, and then
because if something's wrong with you, whether you're a child or an adult, that's the first place you go is a hospital.
Yeah,
you trust those people to help you, and for something like that to happen, especially with the kids, that's just horrible. It's sad.
Horrible. I hate it, but it was just I don't know what really drew me to this story. I guess it's in a way of how could somebody do this to a child of all things. Like, I'm not saying that it would be even better. It would be better if it was an adult or somebody older. I mean, like I said, like, all murders and deaths and all that stuff is just horrible. But I think when it comes to kids and children and
for an adult, of course I'm sure you're not going to know what the nurse is giving you and things like that. But normally as an adult, they tell you what they're doing, or what they're injecting you with, or what you need. And you can say, well, I don't feel good, or that's making my head hurt, or that's giving me nausea, or that you can speak what's wrong with you. A kid can't. They can't, a 10-month-old is not going to be able to tell you that they can't breathe or they have a stomach ache.
Yeah.
So, it's just sad because you're supposed to be their voice, and she chose to hurt them.
Yeah, and that's what sucks too, is that I've had to draw blood from children. I had to draw a 11-year-old and like a 10-year-old and all that stuff, and they're screaming, no, I don't want that. And at that point,
feel horrible.
It does. It makes me absolutely feel horrible. When I had to stick a 9-month-old, and it made me feel absolutely horrible. But it's like, I'm sorry, like, I'm trying to help you and everything, and I don't want you to be terrified about it when you get older, but you need to know, like, all this stuff, and they have to hold them down, and it's just horrible and everything. And I seeing that and knowing how horrible I feel, I could never do this.
Yeah.
Like, I could, like, even when I had to draw blood via syringe, like, I was absolutely terrified that I was going to have, like, an error trapped in a syringe and it would like pull back and go in and kill somebody. I mean, it's terrifying. But I don't know. I don't know why
this she have to be pure evil to do that.
Yeah, mostly to children. I mean, once children are involved, like you are the scum.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know.
Yep.
Anyways, sorry.
Thank you for hanging out with us.
Yeah, and
I know this last part was probably a little quicker than we normally would do, but since we discovered we had no audio for the last hour of our video,
that was. Let me tell you.
Like I said, I think we had a blooper or something where I was like, what did I say? Amateur error.
I think I lost that too when everything crashed.
I was like, amateur error. We had an amateur error moment.
Yes, we did.
And I'm sure it probably won't be our last.
No. And I'm sorry for the change of stuff. It's very dark outside, as you know. Time has changed and it's darker now.
Oh, I know. I hate this time change. I hate it. It gets dark at 5 o'clock and it drives me crazy. I hate it.
So sorry for the transition of it being midday to late at night now. Yeah. But hopefully it looks okay. Honestly, I don't care because I'm not recording this again. And okay, the light has stayed on the whole time, so there better be audio. If there is, guess what? You're not going to see this video ever again.
Let us know down in the comments if you've had any crazy amateur stuff when you started doing your YouTube channels.
Or doing something. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Put your experiences in the comments.
Yeah. And also while you're down there, like and subscribe and do all that stuff because, I mean, I don't know.
She's brain fried.
I am so, because I'm like, if I hear this story one more time, because I'm going to be sitting here editing all this. I do all the editing.
Horrible too because it's, about kids and you have to like redo it and now she's got to edit the entire thing.
And listen to it all over again. I'm the one who had to do the research and I'm going to have to read it now 14,000 freaking times and now I'm going to edit it. Anyways,
thank you for sticking with us and we'll see you on our next video.
Bye.